site I actually want to go to in Idaho that relates to Minnesota through some prehistoric trade networks. So I've never been that way, so I'm going to actually go all the way through North Dakota, Bismarck, Fargo. I know it's going to be a long drive.
And so as a kid, you would go, I'd take a train to Chicago, Minneapolis, and then Minneapolis to Grand Forks.
Okay.
The last 100 miles, you had to go by Greyhound and get off.
That's a trek. Yeah, well, the site I am doing my thesis on is pretty much in the middle of nowhere in northern Minnesota. It's very national forest. But I have a really good cabin to stay at for part of the summer. So. Well, I'm purposely going in August because August is not just June, July, and August is the best. But I mean, May and June, we start getting those big, like, horse flies. It's still going to be bad. Yeah. It's still going to be bad. But August, people like, in summer in Minnesota, like, oh, I can't wait for June, you know, because it's been so cold. But May and June, the clouds are really terrible.
I was so impressed because I thought it was like maybe 10 years ago. So now, like, yeah, no, it's so nice. I mean, there's just security everywhere, and you build. I mean, it's like
using the side house.
Oh yeah,
it was actually a shelter.
We walked every day, like 10 miles. And it was a group of us, so I wasn't. There was 5 of us. But the museums are really nice.
No kidding.
You're still working on travel agreements.
And now, I didn't make it because I didn't go.
It's alluring. I tell you, it's alluring. It's alluring. I mean, I eventually I would like to buy a cabin out there, but you know, lakefront property. It's got to. I mean, compared to here, but compared to one way up.
First seat right here.
First seat on the end. Thank you.
I know. Is that what they have you over here?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
See you.
See you. How are you?
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, Travis.
There you go. You've been traveling a lot, huh?
No, that was a short trip. Not as much as I want to.
Oh, it's a short trip.
Not as much as I wish I could. You were somewhere too, weren't you? You've been kind of.
I'm going away for August, so
The entire month?
3 weeks. Yeah. I'm in graduate school now.
Yes.
5
Bless you. Nice to meet you.
Glad yes.
for my field
Thanks.
work. So I'm going in August, so I'm like going to like double dress. Going to go away in August and like by like a few more weeks I'll be retired. So
Where are you going to go?
northern Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
Middle of nowhere, pretty much. In the cabin, the lake. So, but
Yeah.
it will be warm there, but it won't be like here.
That's nice.
This summer is just
Oh, yeah.
I had it for my work. I have to be outside a lot, and so like yesterday I was outside all day. I got home, you know, I was up in New Joshua through town, parking all day. Got done at 6. And I was like, I'm so hot and sweaty everywhere, you know.
Miguel, you need a copy? You okay?
I have one. Thank you.
I'll take one.
Will I share a microphone? Do I not get one?
You have nothing to say.
Well, you can make yourself.
You can share.
I just kidding. I know how to
You know,
share.
I have all these people, it's like, okay, do we,
I know how to share.
I know he has one, she probably has one.
But it's just crazy.
Yeah. And
So I've always wanted to go to Mexico.
I knew you would.
Oh my
That's
God.
like on my top.
I was just telling Carol, it's probably been 15 years since I've been there.
You've been there before. Okay.
Yeah, it was like in
Well, where's our guy, video guy? Oh, he's there, he's ready.
So we can go ahead, yes?
Yes, we can, if you're ready.
Okay. Will everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
No.
Carol, will you lead us?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Roll call?
Commissioner Acker is absent. Commissioner Armstrong?
Here.
Commissioner Bowie?
Here.
Commissioner Darren is absent. Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Diaz is absent. Commissioner Goodman?
Here.
Commissioner Navarro?
Here.
Commissioner Pace?
Here.
Vice Chair Young?
Here.
And Chair Craig.
Here. Thank you. Report on the posting of the agenda?
The agenda for today's meeting was posted at the City Hall, the Palm Springs Leisure Center, and the city's website last Thursday, July 13th, as required by established policies and procedures.
Thank you. The minutes, approval of the minutes, any corrections, additions? Yes, Commissioner.
I have just a note for page, I believe it's page 2, under Homeless Task Force. This is just a clarity, and it says the first line on the second paragraph says Commissioner Goodman mentioned the commissioners going out in January as a group. And it was actually Commissioner Young, I believe, that mentioned that the task force had requested groups to go out, and then it was my question to Commissioner Young, was he suggesting that we as a group go out?
Okay.
So I just don't know if that would make a big difference, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Otherwise,
Thank you.
I thought they were good.
Any others? Seeing none, do I hear a motion to accept?
Motion to accept with the correction?
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Young. Commissioner Bowie. Commissioner Young. Here. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All abstaining? All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions?
I wasn't here.
You weren't there. Thank you. One abstention. Thank you. Before we go on with here, we have two new commissioners that are with us, Trent and Jody. Can you just tell us a little about yourself for a moment?
Sure. I own a business here in town. I own and run one of the local gyms. So fitness, health, outdoor activities are kind of my thing. Lived here for 5 years, and I think Parks and Rec is something that I'm interested in, considering I use the parks on almost a daily basis. So.
Excellent. And will you all introduce yourselves, Commissioner Bowie?
I'm Alan Bowie. This is my second year on the commission.
I'm Miguel, and it's my 4th year on the commission.
Starting?
Hi, I'm Travis. This is my first year.
My name's Les Young, and this is my 2nd year on the commission.
Hi, I'm Ellen Goodman. This is my 2nd year, and when you say introduce ourselves, I'll just let you know that I work for Palm Springs Unified School District and totally committed to our parks. And I live in Palm Springs over in Topwitz River Estates.
I used to live there.
And I'm Sid Craig. I think this is my 5th year on the commission.
Hi, my name is Carol Davis, and this is my 4th year on the commission as well.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on now. Correspondence?
We have none.
Okay. Public comment, this is the time that we invite the public, if they have any comments or anything they would like to discuss, to please come forward.
Hi there, I'm Alexandra Mazminian. I'm one of the staff at Camp Palm Springs, in case you can't tell by the tie-dye t-shirts. But on behalf of Camp Palm Springs, we'd like to thank the commission, especially Commissioner Goodman, for the grant from the Old Las Palmas neighborhood. Because of you guys, 26 campers had the opportunity to come to camp for 3 weeks, a total of 78 weeks. These are often kids who either never had experience camp or whose parents are going through financial hardships. And we just want to let you know that we appreciate it, and it's really a life-changing activity, not just for the campers, but also for the staff and everyone involved. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you want to get up and take a picture with them?
They're so sweet.
Do you want to get up and be with them for a picture?
Yeah, okay. I mean, maybe all of, I don't know, like all of us, where.
Can we, yeah, we could do that.
Can you guys turn around? So
Can we come over here?
Yeah,
Come this
maybe
way?
they could come here, is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jess, over here, Jess.
Oh, absolutely.
Come over here. Up here. Yeah. Right next to Mr. Pace, please.
Don't you
Do you want to go with her?
Thank you guys.
No, it's okay, it's not about me.
Do you want to say anything?
I want to, if I could just take a second and thank you guys for coming out and our campers. And thank you for signing it, and thank you for recognizing the neighborhood. And I think, what school do we go to? Tell me the schools that you guys go to. You go to Rio Vista and Kauai Elementary School. That is great. And what do you think of camp? It's great. What do you think of camp? It's good. Well, thank you very much for coming here this afternoon and representing your entire group. I really appreciate it. Counselors, thank you. I don't know if they'll get it.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it very much.
So, you know what, if I may,
Please.
Chairman, it was just mentioned that maybe you should know that tomorrow night, we're going to take your poster to the city council meeting. And we're going to present on your behalf, we're going to present the poster to our city council members so that they can see the great stuff that you're doing and how thankful you are. So we won't be wearing tie-dye t-shirts, I don't think, but we'll represent you well.
But
So-
we can get some for you.
I got like 7 at home. You want one?
It's tempting.
Let me know, we have extra
Thank you.
We have one we can fit you in.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. I'm going to jump back again now because our other new member of the commission has joined us now, Jody Diaz.
Hi.
Hi. Just if you'll tell us who you are, and then we'll all tell you who we are.
Great. I'm Jody Diaz. I'm a city resident for 25 years. I've been employed with Palm Springs Unified School District for 25 years as well, starting my 26th year in. I just currently got moved to Cabot Yerkes Elementary School in Desert Hot Springs. And I don't know what else you would like to know. I'm on the City of Palm Springs Black History Committee, and I'm not sure what all I'm supposed to tell you.
That's plenty.
I have gray hair, some gray hair.
We'll go back
It's the
with
kids.
Commissioner Bowling.
It's the kids. There's one there. The other one's stressing me out somewhere else.
Welcome, Jody. I'm Alan Goalie. I've lived in Palm Springs 5 years, and I'm retired, and this is my 2nd year on the commission.
Hi.
Hi, Jody. My name is Miguel, and I'm a 4-year commissioner. I've lived in Palm Springs for 5 years, and I work for the LGBT Community Center. So
Great.
Hi, I'm Travis. I've been on the commission for a year.
My name is Les Young, and I've been on the commission for 2 years, retired, and been in town 5 years. And we have a common element. I work with your daughter on a committee.
Oh, okay.
Lily.
At the police activity.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
That's great.
Yeah.
She just had her wisdom teeth out, so it's been wonderfully quiet.
Oh.
Wow. Hi, I'm Ellen Goodman, and I've been on the commission 2 years. I also work at Palm Springs Unified, run the foundation, exactly, and you're at a fabulous school, and you got
I
a great
am.
principal over there.
I am. She
Amber.
was one of my, I used to be a mentor teacher. She was one of my beginning teachers, so it's kind of.
You've done a great job.
full
She's
circle.
fantastic. Thank you.
I'm Sid Craig. This is the start of my 5th year on the commission.
Hi, Jody.
Hi, Carol. How are you?
I guess you know more about me than anybody else.
Yeah.
I serve with Jody on the Palm Springs Black History Committee, so we know each other. Welcome.
Thanks.
And I'm Trent Pace. This is actually my first
Your
meeting
first
where I'm
meetings to work
commission,
together.
but all over in the corner.
All right.
Great, thank you.
But you can sit anywhere you want, just,
Okay, she told me I had to sit here, so I'm here.
Well, her nameplate was there.
Oh,
wasn't it?
there's a name.
Oh, no, I didn't mean it that way. I meant that you're not, new people don't have to.
Oh, we're not ostracized.
Okay, good,
Gotcha.
good. I want
new
to
kids' corner.
And don't get used, because I have a tendency to change it around too,
That's
so.
what you should do,
Yeah.
Vicki, that's perfect.
Okay, very good. Thank you. There's no city manager report?
None today, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, discussion and action on items. You guys have a copy of everything, correct? Okay. Update on the grass conditions and tree replacements in the city parks. Recommendations, discussion?
At our last month's meeting, Vice Chair Young had brought the topic up, and I think he's brought it up at a couple meetings, and had asked that we get a representative from the Facilities and Maintenance Department to come and give us an update discussing the condition of the grass in our parks. And probably about 6-7 months ago, we got an update on the tree replacement program, and that was one of the things that Vice Chair Young wanted to know about too. Where are we at on our tree replacements? If you recall, when we've lost a number of trees through storms and over the past 5-6 years, and Stacy Schaefer, who's the Director of Facilities and Maintenance, had said that for every tree that went down, we'd be replacing 2, but I'm not sure where we're at in that process, and I think that's where Vice Chair Young was coming from. So today we have with us Kenny Kershaw, who is the Park Supervisor, who will give us a little update on conditions of the grass in the parks. If you recall, probably 3 or 4 months ago, we did came before the commission to talk about changing our times in the parks so we could start getting through a full cycle, and that was some of the issues we were having because we weren't watering until 10 o'clock at night, and if you looked at some place like Sunrise or Ruth Hardy, it takes more than 7 hours to water that whole park. And so we talked about starting irrigating at 7 o'clock in some of those bigger parks and trying to water in areas that were out of the area where you didn't have a lot of people congregating and having activity going on. And I think we've improved in some of our areas, but I still think there's some areas that we're lacking in keeping the grass green, and again, not sure we're at with the trees. So Kenny's here to kind of give us a little update and then an opportunity for you to ask him any questions that you might have. So you can
sit down.
You can sit down, stand either way, whichever you prefer.
Okay. Well, the trees replaced this year, so far we've done 63 new ones gone in. There's Ruth Hardy, Wellness Park, Sunrise Park, Dog Park and the pool.
And could you pull the mic closer?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Did you number said 63? Did you get that?
Yeah.
63.
63 new trees.
That's in various parks, different trees like oak trees, mesquite trees, Chinese elm, mostly drought-tolerant trees. That's what we've been looking for. Last year we planted a total of 76. So we're trying to get the urban forest back to where it was. The city projects that went in this year was obviously the dog park got new trees, City Hall got new trees last year, the Tackwitz Canyon, phase 1 and 2, and Sunny Dunes, Riverside, the Triangle, Tackwitz Triangle. So over them 4 projects, there's a total of 233 trees went in. So we're looking over 400 trees over the past 3 years we've put back in. So we're getting there. Any questions on that?
Have you put in any in Demuth? Am I allowed to ask a
Yeah,
question?
Demuth.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, Demuth, we had 9 trees gone back in.
9.
Yeah. Like we said, we're trying to aim for 2 for everyone we've lost. So we're going round.
Right, because a whole
Just-
bunch of them went down.
Yeah.
Can you relist the species of trees that you were planting
We
slowly?
put Chinese elm in,
Okay.
desert oak,
Okay.
silk trees, silk,
Okay.
mesquite, Tipuana tipu.
Is there a particular plan for which species you're planting in which area, and whether they're close to grass or not?
They're all in the grass.
They're all in the
Yeah.
grass?
Anywhere the irrigation was before. We haven't put new irrigation in. Just what we're using the existing irrigation.
Okay.
But they're getting bubblers. They're not. They're
Well, the
no
ones
longer
in
watering, right?
some did, but we're, like the likes of Ruth Hardy, where the pressure's too low as it is, we're relying on getting on the grass like they used to be. which caused a problem, but we haven't got the pressure to increase any more sprinklers. So we're relying on what we have already. Ruth Hardy's been a real problem with the pressure since we had the master valve put in about 3 years ago. The pressure dropped significantly, and we've had a real problem with the grass ever since. So that's one of the things we've been looking at, maybe trying to get booster pumps or maybe a fresh line put in from DWA, some different options there.
So does it need new valves, or?
It needs a whole new system, yeah. What we've got there just isn't good enough, you know, but it's big money.
It's just old, or what?
It's old and
Yeah.
outdated, yeah. And just that, the loss in the pressure was the biggest problem we had.
Right.
The sprinklers not reaching where they used to overlap. Now there's gaps between them. And that's one of the ones we have to run all night to get the coverage. We're going 12 hours there right now.
Is that why it seems like we're watering with fewer sprinklers at a time?
Yeah, we're
so
trying to
it'll
get the
help
pressure.
increase?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you put them all on together, it just drops again, you know.
And yet, there are areas, I walk the wellness park quite a bit, and the wellness park is literally sitting with an inch of water in it, in that area that has the picnic table.
Yeah.
I think there's actually there must be a broken.
There was a valve stuck on that one.
Okay,
Yeah,
because
that repaired.
I sent something in on the city's website
Yeah.
and got a closeout, but walked it 2 days later, and I was still in an inch of water. So
Okay.
somebody may need to go back and check
Yeah,
that one. And
I'll
you know,
check that.
I mean the lawn that is
I know the one, yeah.
where the table is.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. I rode the parks this morning, and I'm noticing that Demuth is looking pretty good.
I've just spoke to Vicky. They reduced the water there, even though it was looking good, and they reduced it because of the sports fields, the usage, which it's kind of dried up a little bit. So I spoke to them today to try and get a bit more back on.
The perimeters look
Yeah, but the actual
relatively-
centre where it gets the heavy traffic, it's struggling again.
And I stopped at the small pocket park, Baristo, and that was looking beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, that really looks
And
nice.
Victoria's come back well this year. So
Victoria's looking
Yeah.
particularly nice. We'd stopped going because it was pretty much dead.
Yeah.
And it is back.
It's coming back, yeah. And hopefully when we oversee it again this year, it'll just increase, start getting better and improving every year now, you know.
Kenny, do you know if anything is in the budget to address Ruth Hardy Park relative to the pressure?
We've spoke to Marcus about the irrigation, and he's got under his, well, it's getting considered, yeah. Whether we can get the finance for it, I don't know.
And that's not budgeted yet?
No.
So that means, unless it's an emergency thing, it will be at least a year off.
Yeah. But we are watering more now, which we're allowed to do, so it's helping a bit. We can water in the daytime, so things like that.
Okay, and if there's areas that are not getting reached, is there any thought to bringing out trucked water for those particular areas, or?
No, not really, because the truck's so heavy, you put the more damage, you know, driving over the heads and things.
But is there a way they can run off of Miralest or Tamarisk and run the
And that's such a big
hose
area,
out?
yeah.
Okay.
Such a large area.
Please.
I have just two things, two questions, and since you're talking about watering, I'll start with that one. Yesterday, I'm hoping this would be the format to say this. I don't really know how, but or where. And that is, yesterday I was at the Mizell Center, and there are sprinklers at the front entrance, talking about flooding. I'm there on a regular basis, every single week. I think the sidewalk and the pavement gets more water than the actual grass. It shoots way up in the air. I have photos. And then there's a section of grass that's just literally flooded. And if you're walking out of Mizell, the section that's flooded is to the right. And all of the pavement and the driveway at the entrance just receives more water than the grass does. And so I don't know who to mention that to, but
I can look into that, yeah.
I went and asked Mizell's facilities folks about it, and they say periodically they send messages to the city, but it's got to be 3 or 4 weeks that this has been going on, and it's daily.
Yeah. I did receive a report last week on it.
When you walk out
Yes.
on the right.
And the sprinklers that are shooting way up in the air and then arching over, if you're going in the entrance and you're facing Mizell, it's off to the right. And those sprinklers are watering the driveway and the sidewalks.
Okay. They
In
can be
the
adjusted.
same line, the ones there are also watering the street. As you make a right to go out, if you have to go over in the second lane if you don't want to get your car wet because it's shooting halfway across the street.
Okay, I can have them all
Right up
adjusted,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's where it's flooded, is that pocket of grass to the right. So that was just because we were talking about watering parks, and I was told that it was a Parks and Recs property, and Mizell didn't have control over the water. The question I had was, as you're planting, I can't remember from the last report or our discussions, was the shade strategy. So I know that there's a 2-to-1. If we lose a tree, we get 2, and that you're really re-looking at the kinds of trees you're putting in. But can you just give us an update on what the shade strategy is as you determine
Yeah,
the
we
planting?
don't want to create too much shade in one area because it obviously kills the grass as well. So we didn't space it way out, clump like little forest area, kind of spacing everything out. And certain good trees, the shade of the tipus and the mesquites, are the good shade trees we're putting in.
So there's not a shade strategy?
No, just putting the trees back, yeah.
Thank you.
Basically, we're relying on where the irrigation's the strongest to put them back into. So,
Okay, great, thanks.
And I guess one more question, Kenny. Is it our policy now, when a tree is planted, to immediately double stake it? Because
yeah, we're staking them, yeah.
At Ruth Hardy Park, there were several
Yeah.
that were not staked at all.
Yeah, they're all
just broken
staked
in
now,
half.
yeah.
Okay, so they're all double staked.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is the removal complete, caught up to date, or is there still more?
Well,
to
no,
do?
there's still some more that are suffering from the drought. They're finally showing their wear and tear, and they're going to die as well. So we're watching them, and then fingers crossed they don't, but I think they're going to go.
Which
Yeah,
one
I
are
noticed some of them. I wondered if that was.
Yeah, they're still losing trees, yeah.
Which were those?
There's certain trees that were in the drought, we cut the water down by 50%, and now it's beginning to show its effect. It doesn't happen overnight, but now we're seeing it.
I have a couple of questions maybe for Kenny or Vicki about the dog park. Could you all explain what the city has been doing? There's been areas that have been fenced off at the dog park and the grass has come back.
Yeah,
really
them 2 areas
beautifully.
they're the ones that didn't take and got really destroyed. So we sectioned them off and we put some fresh Bermudas grass in there. And then we told it's a real strong grass to Tiffway 2 from West Coast Turf. And they recommended it for the heavy traffic. So we've done them 2 major areas that got destroyed. And then one took really well, and we've just done the second one last week.
And is that the extent of, you're going to do those 2 areas?
We won't do any more this year because they say August is cut off for putting some in. So.
And my other question about the dog park is when will the city look at if the park is going to be overseeded this coming fall?
October, we're looking at October, November, I think they said. Dog
I
park.
think the schedule's already set.
Okay.
For the year with our landscape contractor.
All right.
So it'll be probably late October, November.
Okay. So we'll be closing the park for a
Right.
while.
I'll get that scheduled to you. I'll bring it to the next meeting so you'll have it. And we'll
Okay.
know.
Okay.
Do
Thank
they
you.
do all of them at the same time, Vicki, or they rotate it?
They rotate. They rotate.
Because I know Ruth Hardy's usually a little bit earlier.
Right.
Okay.
We try to work some of the parks too around the events, and I was just telling Kenny that AOSO has a new commissioner, American Youth Soccer Organization has a new commissioner coming on board, and this year the proposed schedule is not to oversee Duluth until October, which puts soccer 4 weeks behind in starting their season, and normally they try to get 10 games in before the Christmas break. So
Right.
I've got to set up a meeting with Stacy Schaefer and the new AOSO commissioner to talk about how that's going to impact their program, and can they actually start sooner in September, or will they have to wait till germination is done and not start till November? So, yeah, could impact a few.
That's going to conflict with the other cities as well.
Yes, the other cities as well, right, going into playoffs and stuff, yeah.
And this to finish up, then for the dog park, do you think we'll be opening up the temporary park if we're going to close it for a couple months? Or
We did last year.
We did last year, but this year, if you recall, when we redid the dog park, it was set to isolate the irrigation so we could actually have one half open while the other half was being overseeded. And I don't know what the plan is, because that would come under Stacy's
Do you
control.
think that in our September meeting that we could get an update on that?
On the
'Cause
seeding
there's going to
for
be a
the
lot
dog
of
park?
interest in the community about this issue.
Sure.
I think that is, Commissioner Armstrong is right from that standpoint, because 2 years ago, we had voted not to reseed at the time during the drought
Right.
period. And then this last year, so we didn't do it because they were redoing the park. So all of our community users knew about this in advance. We've had the discussions that some of the concerns with the dog park has been that it's almost overused.
It's heavily used,
Because there's so many people using it for the grass to stay, all of those discussions that have come up before. But it seems like we should be notifying the people with either some notices on the fence or something that once we know when it's going to be done, so people at least are given some options.
And we will do that as we've done in the past. So, again, the decision we made, I mean, again, the biggest issue with the dog park in the past was the whole park was on one system. So once the irrigation came on, there was no way of isolating it. You either had to water all the park or none of the park. And so that's why we closed the whole park down for 8 weeks and moved them to another site. Now, when we just did the new project, the renovation on it, it was set that the irrigation was set so that you could close half of the large dog park and keep half of it open and have the smaller park open as well. So again, that will be, I don't know how the landscape contractor and Stacy and them have worked that out, but I'll get that information and try and get back to you at the September meeting.
So am I understanding it right? So you're saying that with the irrigation system, that if you closed the large section of it, that everybody would use the small section?
No, you could
it's
actually
divided.
isolate the
Oh,
large.
it's physically divided?
Yes, it'll be divided.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, even with the small dog park, it would be conceivable to keep the area near the front gate with just the gravel open. It's a pretty small area, but the temporary dog park didn't have any small dog park area after that part was taken down.
Right,
So
so
that
they
may
could
be
go and
better
fix it
than nothing for some people who don't want to have the dogs mix. So, just an idea.
Any other questions?
I have one more. Is there a maintenance schedule that's actually written out where certain things are checked periodically during times, such as sprinklers get gone through
The
once
irrigation,
every 2
yeah,
months?
the sprinklers are done weekly by the landscape
Weekly?
company, yeah.
Okay. What about other things? Checking for parasites, checking?
Yeah, that's down
weeds?
to all we sort of source our landscapes with a company called Mariposa, and everything's down to them, pest control and everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they do all the checking and the treatment?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
We
Thanks, Kenny.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
This was, Commissioner Young, I think this was a good idea to bring these questions like this and have a representative from the city to be able to get back to us on that. And for the community to be able to know these things as well. Thank you. Skate park, update.
So, Mark Lowy, who is with Action Park Alliance, who is the company that manages and operates the skate park for us, unfortunately was in town last week and won't be back in town until the end of the month. So he sent me some numbers to give you a little update of the activity that's been going on at the skate park the last 6 months from January through June. So in the first 6 months of the year, they've had over 9,600 skaters come into the park.
9,600?
9,600. Of that 9,600, 2,485 were residents. The remaining were non-residents.
Oh, wow.
How many? 20?
2,485 were residents.
So like 6,000 plus or somewhere else? Yeah.
7,000
Wow.
elsewhere,
Well,
yes.
and when we talk about, these are visits, right? Not
These are
necessarily
visits.
people, so.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's
cool.
based on daily, so every day, so like today they could have 100 kids come in. Tomorrow the same 100 kids could come in, so it's,
Gotcha.
could be,
So these are repeated numbers. These are
repeated
repeated
numbers, but it's
visitors,
their daily, over 6 months.
but not unique users.
Right.
Okay.
Not
Yeah.
that many users, but think.
What's the cost I'm sorry, Vicki. What's the cost to get in there?
They charge no fee.
for anyone.
Their only requirement is that if they have to sign a waiver, and if they're under the age of 18, the parents must come in and sign that waiver for them in order to skate.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
there's no fee for them to skate. This year in January, they had the Elgato event again, and it's the reunion of the legend skaters with Tony Hawk at the head of the realm, and they had over 500,000 people in town that weekend for that event. And it was, I think, more
Did you
receptive.
say 500?
5,000.
Oh, I heard 500 also.
I just-
Sustained corrected, it's
I thought you
5,000.
said
I was like, 500, our city has 500,000.
Good, I'm not crazy.
It was a big improvement from last year, because last year, in 2016, they moved the event downtown to the spa, casino's parking lot. And they did very little at the skate park. So the skaters really didn't have the atmosphere that they wanted to have for the event. And so the numbers when they were downtown were much lower than this past year.
Well, they got a new parking ramp now. They can zoom all around up in there.
Well, I know. We'll see how that goes when it's done.
Are you advertising that?
No, of course, I'm thinking about my school. How do I get Tony Hawk to come visit my school while he's here in town for that? That's what I'm thinking.
You know, when Mark is here, I can get that information, and we can try and get him out there.
That'd be great.
So that was one of the big events. And every month they've tried to do some type of an event at the park, just to bring, not only just for the locals, but, it's a tourist site. When the skate park opened, it was one of the top 10 in Southern California. And it still is at that status. Everybody wants to come, they want to skate the park. And it's kind of exciting. I don't know if any of you had the opportunity during the Elgato event to go there. I know my son had a board and was waiting. Him and his friends were waiting, and they caught Tony Hawk, and they got his autograph, and they got a bunch of other ones, but that was the one they wanted to get. So it was kind of exciting for them to do that. February, they did kind of a love contest for Valentine's Day. It's a free skate, but they do competition, and they give out trophies and rewards, Safe Pride hot dogs and drinks for the kids. And they had about 60 people who actually competed in the competition. So, again, locals, non-residents that partake in that. Every Friday night, I think there's one Friday night a month, they do like a skate jam. And so the kids come out, again, they run competitions and, show their best trick. And they, again, have free hot dogs and just to get the kids involved in doing things and trying to get the word out there that the skate park's here. They have been doing a lot of promo. They're down at Village Fest at least once a month. They shot a really cool video, and they were in the process of shooting it, and we had lap swimmers panicking because they were using a drone to shoot the park, and swimmers were running into oh my God, somebody's taking pictures of us and videoing us, and so we had to go tell Robert to kind of bring the drone down a little bit so it wasn't hanging over above the swim center area. And they did a really cool video, and they show it when they're down at Village Fest, and are starting to get more people coming through the door. They've actually increased their numbers from last year. In the Friday night jams, they've been averaging around 75 people for that event. And even in the summer when it's, the last few months when it's been, 100 plus, they're still having these kids coming out, skating. Their numbers have gone up. They're doing summer camp this year. We do the early morning camp for the parents where the kids can come in at 7:45 and they get lessons for an hour. They've gone from averaging 12 kids a week to 25 kids a week. This week, I think they almost have 30 kids that are in the lessons. Even their private camps, their one-on-ones have gone from 17 to 43. They've increased in the last 6 months. What else did Mark give me? During the winter camps and spring camps, they went from like 30 kids to 45 kids coming and participating in those camps. So they've had a pretty good year, and I know they're just starting their 5th year of operating and managing the skate park for us. And I know they have this opportunity to opt for another 5 years of maintenance and operation for us. So I think that's one of the things Mark might be focusing on in the next couple months of getting with the city manager to look at continuing the relationship with the city of Palm Springs, operating the Palm Springs skate park for us, so.
Sounds great.
Could he, for a future meeting, be at, when he's in town, if it works, that we have him come again?
I will.
Does
He tries to come once a quarter.
He was very interesting. I really enjoyed that.
He tries to come out here quarterly. I know he came out last week for an unexpected staff meeting, because he had sent me an email saying, I'm going to be in town at the end of the month. Great, and then his math say, Mark's in town this week. I said, no, he's not. He told me he wasn't coming till the end of the month, but he had to come out for a special meeting with the staff, and they had to bring all their staff into Fontana and have a special meeting and stuff, so.
I've said before, I went over and told them I was one of the commissioners and took a tour and everything. Great people over there. And if any of you haven't done it, it's really interesting to go over and see it and watch the way they do it. And they invite you for their barbecue things that they do and the hot dog things and the events. But it's something that the public really would not know. And maybe it's not right for in this, but you're on this topic and that when Kaz had brought up about, we were talking about doing signage.
Mm-hmm.
Are we anywhere on that, or is that?
We are. I actually taught Mark, and I had this conversation on the phone the other day, and he's got his graphic person working on some designs, and once I have those, I'll bring them to you to review before I take it to the planning department to get their buy-off on it, and then we can get the signs made. And we're looking at doing a 10 by 3 foot sign for both that and for the skate park and the swim center.
Excellent. Because, just, you know, we had this discussion before because some people, when they're driving down Ramon and they see the lights up there, they would assume that tennis or something over there. They don't know. That
so you're thinking of putting signage on the Ramon side?
Yes.
To bring them around?
Bring them around.
Yeah.
We right now have along the street, we put in the brown signs that'll have, you know, swim center with the arrows, you got to come around the circle. But if you're not really looking at the small little, you know, sign along the road, you're not going to see it.
Right. I know a lot of people don't even know that Leisure Center, all that stuff's tucked back in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
Just a couple of questions. I'm curious as to how are they capturing like the visits? Because I know before when Mark did the presentation, they weren't really scanning or recording the visits. How are they doing that now?
When a skater comes into the park, they'll ask them who they are. They go into their system and they click on them that they've checked them in for that day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when they do like the waiver, probably imported on.
So as they get the waivers in, the waivers go into their system, and then as you know, they've got to where they know most people. But if it's someone new, tell me your name again. They go in, they click on them, and that checks them in for the day. And it's a way for parents, because you sometimes get parents will drop their kids off, and they leave for the day and just leave the kids there skating.
Yeah.
And so it's a way for parents to verify the kids, because sometimes parents may just drop them off and they leave and the kids go somewhere else. So.
And I know there was also a concern we heard a while back of like needles that were found. Did you mention any of that, like any ongoing issues with?
We have, the problem that we've had, I so far, knock on wood, we've curtailed the problem. When the skate park closes at 10 o'clock at night, that cul-de-sac area is just left open. And so what happens is there's a few guys and maybe gals who hang around after 10 o'clock at night. I know the first day that we started summer camp, we used the tennis courts at Palm Springs High School. I actually had to go get brooms and stuff from the swim center so I could sweep the glass off the tennis courts where the guys throw their beer bottles over and they break them on the tennis courts.
And he didn't mention any of that.
They weren't having a problem around in the park itself. They're staying late, and he would love to have at the end of the day close Barristo completely, or Pavilion Way completely off, and just put up like barricades so nobody can get down in that area. They would like to do that. I did send that information to the police department and asked for anytime they had an opportunity they could come through there after 10 o'clock at night, maybe especially Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because that seemed when most of the partying seemed to be happening. And I'd have to say that I've only had to clean the tennis courts off once this summer, so knock on wood, I didn't jinx myself. So.
Well, some of the things that you shared with me about in the park, the homeless issues and certain things, I conveyed that in a meeting yesterday to the chief.
I don't think we've had that big of a problem in that area.
No, I don't mean in that area, in general.
But just a park in general. And it's, I would say so far this summer, it's been kind of a non-issue. they've kind of maybe have, I'm not sure where they've gone, but they don't seem to be hanging around our building as they do normally around the
They
year.
usually used
So.
to hide in all those nooks and crannies around there in the mornings, but not right now. They used to always be tucked in all those little.
Right.
Yeah.
Commissioner.
I go to meetings at Mizell a couple times a month, and they used to be all over the place, but your watering schedule has changed that completely. There was times that the ladies didn't want to walk from their cars into the building by themselves because there were so many. Last week I was there for a meeting. I didn't see anyone. I left at 8:30 at night. Around
Right, the watering could be.
because it was raining all over.
You know, it's interesting, if I just may add to that, I was there last night at 8:30, and the only people around were people leaving the skate park.
Yeah.
And so they were skating in the parking lot on their way to wherever they were headed down Ramon and Sunrise.
Yeah.
Victor, I have a question. Are the cameras working now at the skate park?
I don't know that for sure. I did get with the Captain Combs, I actually was driving the other day and he was next to me and I stopped and rolled the window down and said, hey, how are we doing with the cameras? And the email I got this morning was, the company that was working on the camera said that everything in the parks, including the skate park, were working. But I did ask Captain Combs if he could verify with someone who monitors their cameras if they could go in and just see if they're seeing something. Because right now, the ones that we put in can only be seen by the police department. So if we have an incident, we have to, could you check the camera at this side approximately this time on this date to see if you saw something?
Oh, okay.
So according to my email this morning, yes, they're supposed to be working.
Okay.
I'm going to be sitting in sort of as a ride-along in dispatch. So when I am there, I will make sure I go through and ask about each of the cameras and get to see each of the cameras to see if our parks cameras are working. And by the way, anybody can do that. And I think we have a class coming up in September for the citizens police class, and I strongly recommend, if you've got 13 weeks, that you can give up your Thursday nights. It's phenomenal, and part of that is you get to do a ride along, and you get to do, you can sit in dispatch. So I strongly recommend. Sorry for commercial.
September.
Any other comments on this point? Thank you. Reports and requests? None?
I have my usual list. So signage, we've already addressed. Today, driving by the skate park, there is major graffiti for about 50 feet right on Ramon. It's pretty nasty, and it's probably 4 feet tall. I mean, the amount of the brick wall is pretty well covered. So
Is it on the wall backside of the pole end? Or
I think it was actually,
or school district side?
I think it was, no, it's on the Ramon side, but I think it was just the skate park, I think.
Okay.
I was driving, so I can't be responsible for knowing exactly where it started, but it was there.
Yeah, we have in that area, just down the cul-de-sac, there's a back door that goes into where our Tiny Tot program is at, and almost, at least once or twice a week, the security guard is reporting graffiti that's on that door, or the graffiti on the windows, and it looks like we have someone who might be taking up residency inside of that area. Someone need to have our security guard go in there and look at it, and someone had carved a swastika inside on the door, so we got someone get the door fixed and get that off of there. So it's an ongoing issue in the park of, you know, around our buildings. They like to draw on our doors and windows and stuff, so it's an everyday occurrence.
It's crazy. I went to Demuth Park, and we still need to get that chain link between the tennis courts and the pickleball courts, and the hooks for hanging bags and coats up on the chain link around for the players to keep their stuff off the ground so we don't have anybody injured. Also, we're still down one set of bleachers there. The one that got destroyed by the tree falling hasn't been replaced, and the other set of bleachers is still way off. It's like facing the picnic area. I don't know why, but if we
I
can
thought
get-
it was brought back, it wasn't?
No, it hasn't been yet. But we need to get it pulled back, and we need to get it somehow anchored down so that people can't just be pulling it off. And,
Things move.
and the second
walk.
set replaced. Two things I have for new items. I recently went to the 1PS meeting, and I had asked the last time they put out their guide if they could include pictures of our parks, because we are a neighborhood. I mean, our parks are all within neighborhoods. And they said, oh, good idea, maybe next time. So I sent a memo to communications to ask them to include, as they're adding the new neighborhoods and putting out the new guide, if they could please put our parks in. Their maps reflect our parks, but I think it'd be great if when they talk about, you know, the movie Colony, they show Ruth Hardy Park. When they talk about Sunrise, they show Sunrise Park, Duluth Park. So I'd like to do that. The other thing that came up at the 1PS meeting last week is we have won the NUSA conference, and I think it's for 2019, so we've got 2 years to prepare for this. But that is the organization of neighborhood throughout the country who get together, and we've been assigned, I think it's 2019, and that means we've got 2 years to prep for it. And I'd like to know, I'd like us to figure out, working with 1PS, how we could showcase our parks and talk about how we prepare and maintain our parks in our community and how our you know, how people use it. So we've got some time to work on it, but if we want to do any work or get things, you know, budgetarily cleaned up, we've got to start now, because 2 years goes pretty quickly when it comes to budget money. So I'm not sure if that's something that when we get back in September we want to look at a subcommittee, but I thought it'd be a good idea to take a look at that. That's all I've got.
Can I add a comment to that last one?
Sure.
The other thing is you are looking at 2 years away, and some of these plans that they're using are going to take that long to even just establish the root system. So the sooner it gets dealt with, the better if you really want to present well. I mean, the trees that he listed, they won't even be into full bloom until their 3rd year.
Yeah.
So, just saying, just an addition.
I absolutely agree, Trent. It's, yeah. And one of the other issues that we've talked about with that, Trent, is getting an ongoing policy where even if we're not pulling out a tree, we look at, do we need to add a tree 2 years from now, so that 20 years from now we'll have trees at different heights. Because what we seem to have had within the last 4 or 5 years is a bunch of trees that hit 30 years old and died or fell. And it's like, okay, they were all planted 30 years ago. We need to get better about the cycle of life.
Can I add on to that?
Yeah.
Okay. During Kenny's presentation, it did come up that, you know, they're planting these different species and everything, and how they're spacing it. Is there a master plan for Parks and Recs, what our parks should look like?
Not so much what the park should look like. When the master plan was done in 2008 and was finished in 2010, the city didn't adopt it until like 2014. So already the master plan is time for a new one. The master plan addressed more of, one, do we have enough park space? And by the fact that we added in the golf course and counted the acreage of the golf course, we actually have more park space than needed because of the size of the golf course based on population. If you take the golf course away, we're probably under acreage.
Yeah, I saw that as comments somewhere.
But it did not really address, it talked about, we need to build a regional park or a sports complex, because our one sport park we have at Duluth, it's overused, has very little downtime. You either got soccer constantly going on with softball tournaments, and the adult soccer would play every day, every night, 365 days a year if you'd let them. And so it talked about really those two things, the redesigning Duluth Park and also building a separate sports park. But it did not address, what types of trees and, when we do it. And I know that through sustainability, I believe they had a study done. When Michelle Meissen was here and was head of sustainability, they brought in an arborist that really talked about the types of trees we should be planting, And there was a whole list of trees that they were going to be looking at planting, and I think I probably still have it somewhere in my files that was presented to the commission back in the fall. So,
would it be possible to get a copy of that then?
Sure.
Because
Sure.
there are some that I understand, even though he's doing even spacing so that they're not all too close together to create too many dark spots for the grass to grow, there are some of these that leach water from topsoil, which would kill the grass underneath them, regardless whether it's shade or not. So it'd be good to see, you know, if they're supposed to be used in particular areas with dry patches around them, or if they're supposed to be planted right in the middle of a grass section.
Yeah. Okay. I'll get a copy, then I'll send it to you.
So you said the master plan needs to be updated. Is there a timeline for when it should be updated?
Well, they say every 5 years. The master plan is good for 5 years.
Okay.
And so when the master plan was actually completed in 2010, obviously the market had crashed, you know, funding wasn't there. So it was kind of put on the back burner, and it took some efforts of some former commissioners to actually move it forward to get it finalized and to the council to be approved and be adopted. But then, you know, we're already, you know, that was 2014, it was done in 2010.
So it's
now
7
probably
years
the
old.
time. So because of the funding source, there were one of the biggest things was we didn't redo the survey. You know, there was a survey done, inventory that was sent out to random addresses for people to complete. You know, what they wanted to see in the parks, where they lived, that type of thing. There wasn't the funding to redo that because the information we had then was old information, but all we really had was enough money to, let's get this done, let's move it forward. We'll do what little we can do with the extra money we had, or what little money we had, and at least get it to the city council so they can adopt this plan, give it their blessing, and really it's probably now time to start looking at trying to fund and get ready to do another master plan to see where we're at, because obviously from 2008 to now we've changed quite a bit in our needs and where we need to be.
Does sustainability co-fund any of the things done in the parks when it is something that is technically sustainable?
They were doing some things. I mean, they replaced recycled containers in the park. Michelle was working with some signage, but it's more of the Department of Facilities and Maintenance handles the maintenance aspect of the park. Parks and Recreation, we do all the programming in the parks. So we have sometimes a little disconnect because I get all the emails and it tells me what's going on in the parks and what's not right, and so then I've got to pass on to someone else, which I really don't like doing. I'd rather take care of the problem myself, but sometimes I don't always have the answers. And I know that's some of the issue that the commission has, is that they see things and I'm always getting questions, and it's like, yes, I know, but I don't handle that. I'm not responsible for the maintenance. I can only pass it along to someone to, you know, try and make it happen. So we could, you know, look at where we need to be and what we need to do. And
I have some comments. Well, just on sustainability, I was on that commission for a few years, and just so this commission knows and anyone watching, the sustainability budget is under a severe budget crunch. The city is not right now hiring a sustainability manager at all, and so you know, there's just not a lot of money in sustainability. There is money in the recycling fund, which is a sort of dedicated fund. But I wanted to talk about, you know, one of my concerns is open space and park space, and we already talked about the golf course. But I was wondering, when you come into town on the 111, that Chino Cone area, I think is Angel Cove and the Shiprock area, I noticed that there's some new signage there. Is that area like being conveyed to the city as open space from the Friends of the Palm Springs Mountains, or is that privately held by the nonprofit still? Because I know last year the city gave money to eventually take title to some of that.
I'm not sure where we're at on. I know there was some discussion on exchanging of some land areas to salvage some land up in the Chino Cone, but I don't know all the particulars on that.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll take this opportunity just to give you a quick Measure J update, which I probably will be new to some and familiar to others. But for today's meeting and for Jody and Trent, maybe just a little bit of background. And Measure J had invited commissions to make presentations for their, I believe it was their 18-19, 19-20 funding year, and where they, in the past, have always been able to suggest to the city council where money might go into the community. And I believe that is maybe $1 million or $2 million, whatever that bucket might have looked like. And Parks and Rec, we as commissioners formed a task force and spent some time looking, and I think, Trent, this kind of was maybe on the heels of your question, is really what would parks look like, what do parks need? And the information that we presented to Measure J was directly out of a retreat that we did. Since the master plan is outdated, we got together as a group, spent a half day, and really kind of hammered out some ideas on what our parks would look like, where are our hot spots, what we should be paying attention to, what we're hearing in meetings. So we put a presentation together, and we went to Measure J, and we gave them some ideas, which I think many of them have been discussed here. And then we went off and ran with some small little meetings. We were at City Council when Measure J gave their recommendation. In the last couple of months, we haven't really organized, and we haven't been invited back to the table. So I took it upon myself just to reach out to Measure J and say, hey, what's going on? Give us an update. And pretty much what I got yesterday in my phone call was that the money that was allocated to PS1 fulfills the larger grant that they just received. I think I'm saying that correctly. The city just received a $6 million traffic fatality grant to look at areas, and that is what PS1 was doing. And PS1 was doing that over a period of a few years, and then the money that Measure J allocated to PS1 with the grant money that came in actually will complete the entire project. And they won't have to actually inch along, they'll actually be able just to hit the ground running with that. So that was really good news. Then the other news was, because of where the city is at financially, that the city is looking at all of their resources. And regardless of how Measure J is written in legislation and what people voted on, the city can use it for emergencies, and that money was allocated for the downtown park and for infrastructure. And it doesn't look like anytime soon that money could come to Parks and Rec. So I just thought I would tell you that that's what I
interject to let them know
Yes.
that they had agreed to give.
Yes, thank you for that. So when we did the presentations, Measure J selected 2 projects to present to City Council. My apologies for leaving that part out. PS1 was one of the projects, which was the traffic hotspots and where the fatalities are, and the other one was Parks and Recs, in which Parks and Recs would receive $2 million, which would be a multi-year infuse of money. And then we would be able to address pretty much what you had requested, what do our parks look like, and what's happening, and how to increase safety and usage. I would say that with the stirs and purrs and the shortage and retirement, and every city in California is facing this, and every school district is facing this. And so as the city starts to look to see where they can cut and how they can use reserves, the city, it is at their discretion to use the resources available to them, and that would be Measure J. And so I feel that I walked away from that conversation after we were awarded the money in a few months. I feel I walked away from the conversation yesterday. It's really tabled, it's on the shelf, and I would recommend for our group to just put our ideas on hold and as far back on the burner as we could possibly get it, and move some things forward.
It was a little bit of good news, bad news. The good news was we're giving you the $2 million, 11th hour caveat, but we want the right to be able to pull it for the downtown if needed.
Yes, so was that the bad news, or was the bad news they pulled it?
We're giving it to you, but we're really not giving it.
Right, good news, bad news.
But the good news was many people applied for things. We were one of the winners.
Yes. Well, and I think it really does show. I think it shows. It's kind of interesting because Vicki, you're absolutely right. Like maintenance and operations, and taking care of the park is in another department, programs is in another department, and I think we were all, I was left with a really good feeling that people really do care about the parks, and they really want to change, and they really want to see something different. And the first priority is going to be the downtown park, and filling that $6 million gap. And I think then everything else. And anything else? I might have.
Just kind of going along with that same thing, Vicki knows the way, possibly, Sid possibly does. Is there a diplomatic or professional way that we, as a Parks Department, can tell our city council that we are the Parks Department here, hey, you're doing a park downtown, we're ready, willing, and able to work. Why don't you get us involved? So that when it's done with, it's like, oh, nobody mentioned that? And we all get them. Is there a diplomatic way?
Well, you know, when the idea of the downtown park came about, we were just having the kind of discussion at the staff level. And of course I asked the question, well, who's going to, because there was this thing they were going to have, you know, stage and events and stuff there. So who's going to manage that? And David looked at me and go, well, you are. Okay, great. It's good to know. And then all of a sudden they were having meetings and there was no representation from the department and or Parks and Recreation Commission on the initial meetings when they started having the meetings. And then Chair Craig kind of got in there, and we got Commissioner Aiello, who was attending those meetings, and then Sid stepped in and started attending the meetings, but I don't think there's been really a meeting of the group.
I think I've seen on Facebook floating around that there's one coming up on July.
Right, there's a meeting Thursday, actually Thursday.
Is that Thursday?
Thursday,
Okay.
6 o'clock.
There's a meeting at 6 o'clock.
And that's open to any?
It's open to, it's an open meeting.
Sure.
It's the designers back again to present, I think, a design of the park for discussion.
Thursday night. Here,
It'll be here at 6 o'clock.
And it'd be in probably in Primrose B where they have the commission, council meetings. But there's not really been, and from my perspective, input from, you know, Parks and Recreation, what you want to see in the park, and from the commission level as well.
It just seems with all the things they have going, that's like fourth down on the rung of things that are important to them. And we are the Parks Commission, and that they would turn to us to get involved and work with them along the way.
We have tried the diplomatic way.
Well, maybe it's so early. Maybe it's just really early in the design stage, and I mean, who really knows? I mean, right? We know that grass is going down, and until the city really, maybe they're not. Maybe it's too early.
From what I'm understanding also is that since the developer is going to grass the area and irrigate and grass it, that even though there'll be the meeting at 6 o'clock on Thursday evening, and under the last council, I was at the table with the former mayor and the art commission, and it was a group with architects and everybody that were there, and we were meeting probably 3 times a year at that time. And then things changed again, and it's gotten a different council, a broader approach to it. It was a $12 million budget originally. It went to $7 million, then it went to 6 or 7 million. And realistically, because of now with the pensions and everything else going on, realistically, it's going to just be grass, I think, for a while, for the next 2 years, from what I'm understanding. There is an open meeting tomorrow night. They did not, the Art Commission and the Parks and Recreation were not singled out to be notified in advance. So it's not on the front burner of that thinking, but we're staying on top of it. So this way I can come back next month for any of us who are attending tomorrow, Thursday night, and we'll discuss what we found and heard.
I was going to say, it's actually, I think it's Thursday night, not tomorrow night.
I said tomorrow. I'm sorry, I mean Thursday night.
We're doing a special meeting for this.
Yeah, that's on the 20th. City council meeting's on the 19th.
Bring your sweaters.
Yes, bring your sweaters.
We could save that $3 million if they cut the air down in this building. Don't put that on the record.
I won't.
Any other comments? A couple of things I wanted to say. I'm glad we brought up about with the skate park. I also wanted to put down for discussion for September is that in October, the fact that we as a city, we did a ribbon cutting last October as with the ADA compliance for the children's, for the playground, with the rubber floors,
Right.
the swings, the ramps, and United Cerebral Palsy had 59 children they brought in by bus, and it was like a fair there. We did a dedication with all of it. I'd like to, in September, put it on the agenda to discuss about, seeing about maybe doing something in November at the park on a Saturday, developing a program again with children, with maybe from the children that were involved with the summer playground for the summer programs. But just the idea of bringing something with the fact that we are a city that has the first ADA compliance playground. My long-term goal in my mind is that we'll see in the next 5 to 7 years 2 or 3 more of these going into parks in our city, that we're inclusive for all children. So I'm just like to put that on the agenda to discuss in September, about thinking about brainstorming, should we do something with children, showing again, because of discussion that council people have had about things with Parks and Recreation. So I'd like to emphasize more the things that we are doing for children and involved with children. I sat in on the interviews, and I am pleased the 2 of you are with us today and part of this now. This is a good group of people. This commission has done more in the last 3 years. I came on 5 years ago. When I came on, there were 5 openings because they had 5 commissioners resign. So it's a different time, and they weren't on public television at that time. They were in the offices over at by the pavilion, or by Vicky's offices. So it's come a long way, and it's doing a lot of things. Carol has done amazing things over at Desert Highland with the gym that was set up there with the equipment there. We did a ribbon cutting there. The pickleball games that are being played now at with the children and with seniors at Desert Highlands. I've attended, Carol's seen it, Les has seen it. It's rather amazing if you get a chance to go over. And last night we heard they're playing every day over there. So you're seeing children and seniors together playing pickleball. Pickleball became a big thing because of the public coming here to us. We started with 1 tennis court, then we went to 2 tennis courts. Pickleball courts. And they would like us to have all 4 of those to become that. We still deal with for the tennis community, etc. But we've discussed with Measure J, Council, etc., the idea of physically putting in 2 more, building 2 more in the next few years. These are all discussion points and budget things, but we're trying to be proactive to what the community is asking for. The dog park, which we were in the front of for the dedication of, the biggest thing we're hearing is that it's overused. And I don't think there's any way, Travis, is there, to keep up with that? It's just getting, people are really using it.
You could just stand at the gate and click and say no more allowed.
Another part.
Sure, Miguel?
What I want to kind of share is maybe if we could add in our agenda for September the topic of a second dog park. And I feel like this fiscal year we were kind of a little bit too late to get any kind of input in what we really, really seriously want to push as far as seeing kind of evolve from Parks and Rec. And I just want to get that topic to be continued because I don't know if any of you noticed, but Desert Hot Springs opened their dog park. That was $60,000, so it was like.
And they're getting ready to open
and they're
another
going to
one.
get ready to open the second one. So I really feel like we're falling behind a lot on this topic because I've heard it since I've been sitting on the commission, and I don't think it's going to go away. And I would like us to keep
And
talking.
it doesn't need grass.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
it can be really affordable and be really great for animals.
So if there's a way we could get an early jump on our fiscal year budget of what to include, I would
Okay.
like to talk about it and have that as a priority.
And, you know, and that was one of the things, and I know Commissioner Armstrong's brought up a number of times, it is one of the items that was mentioned in our master plan, that there was a need for a second dog park. It's just a matter of where do we put it. So.
Well, it was in the Measure J, and it was also a part of the retreat.
I want to thank Miguel for bringing that up, and I think, you know, maybe if we have a discussion about these low-cost alternatives, because when you see what Cathedral City's done, I mean, some people don't really like that park that much, but there are some things that are good about it, and Desert Hot Springs for the kind of cost that if we could come up with a space you have for a low cost, it would be something that would be really benefit the community. So that would be a terrific item, I think, to discuss.
Can I ask who owns, sorry, can I ask who owns the land? Is it the districts, or there used to be that community school tucked in next to the plaza?
That belongs to school district. That whole strip is school district.
Oh, okay.
And that was property they have been trying to sell.
Maybe that's a good place for another dog park. On Baristo, on the other side of Sunrise.
And I know that, I believe actually it's going before council tomorrow night, that the property that's to the west, at there, Hermosa and Baristo is being considered for condominiums, I believe, project.
Has there been any consideration in the past to create open, non-leash areas within the parks themselves?
This commission, for about 2 months, we went through this. I had a subcommittee, we worked on it, we identified areas. It went before the city council, and they were concerned of having dogs in the parks off-leash in unfenced areas.
Well, that's not what I'm saying. Doing fenced areas where it would just be where the current park itself is, under a shaded area that maybe has a grass problem already, that it would be a good area for them to do, plus then the community gets more use of it that actually live there.
Right, and that was the issue, especially like at Ruth Hardy, because there's a lot of people who walk their dogs at Ruth Hardy that are off leash, that don't comply with the city's leash law. But so we were identifying an area, this strip area, you can bring your dog. These are the hours that they can be off leash as long as they're within, you know, you call them, they hear you, they can respond. You know, so it was going to be an actual off leash area that was not going to be fenced in. So I know we had this conversation a few months ago, but we haven't really talked about it, of how we would like to proceed with that.
So I live on the Topwitz Wash, and very few people, if anyone, probably I'm the only one, who leashes their dog. And I can't tell you how many times my dog and I are charged by dogs off leash, and owners do not have command over their dog. And we have some senior owners, not only do they not have command, they can't run fast enough. Now I've got a really big Great Dane, and if something happens, it's going to be my fault because I got the bigger dog. And I think I'm just one of many people, and I really want to advocate for an off-leash recreation area for dogs that can have all kinds of great spaces, that is kind of off-site and can be picnic and park and more rugged and a bit more rural, where we don't have this expense, so that kids, and I have to say that my dog has been off-leash many, many times, and little kids are squeaky toys. I mean, he hears a little kid squeal and he thinks it's a squeaky toy. That scares a little kid. But I think these are just things, but I do think there's a way, an affordable way, and I think there's land out there to look that would be able to keep some pristine parks in that shape. And, you know, Cathedral City, Travis, that you mentioned, they just recently received a grant to do a patch where there's an amphitheater going in. It's to the west of their parking garage. And it's
on Cathedral Canyon.
Cathedral Canyon.
Right behind the IMAX.
And so I think that as the city, I think they were looking for a grant writer. I mean, there might be some options for us. And so I support trying to get that conversation going early enough where we can maybe have something to hang our hat on, like we did the dog park and the playground. That each year we have a project that would be great. You know, the redo of the gymnasium and the multi-purpose room at Highland Park.
This is the time in our agenda where we say, I'd like the following things put on the agenda next month.
Is it time to talk about another off-site planning for October or November to talk about these things in more detail?
We could. I mean, we could add it as a topic for discussion for September's meeting. to decide on a date, time,
If we could, does everybody agree?
or retreat.
It allows us more opportunity to talk openly. Unfortunately, by the Brown Act, we're limited as to what we can talk about during meetings and, you know, strategize, so.
Right.
If you have an idea for anything when we're not in session like this, you can only go to Vicky, who will disseminate it to us. You cannot email us.
Can't reply all.
You can't. That's the Brown Act. If 3 of us went to lunch and said the building should be brown, we're in violation. We're discussing business. We all learn that at certain points from emails. Any other requests or interests or things for the agenda? Okay. And also that option before, 72 hours before, you can always send things into Vicky. Staff updates?
Actually, 2 of the commissioners brought it up to me, and just to, normally July is when we would do our election of officers for the coming year. But knowing we had 2 new commissioners coming on board, I thought I'd wait till the September meeting. So September on the agenda, we will have election of chair and vice chair for the 17-18 budget year. So that'll be out in September, so you can start thinking about who, what you might want to do, chair-wise, vice chair-wise. Already been mentioned, but I thought I'd mention it again. This Thursday, the 20th, is the Downtown Park meeting. It'll be at 6 o'clock, and I believe they're holding it in Primrose B, where they hold the council meetings. So it's my understanding that they're, from the meeting that was held, was it back in May at the convention center, where everybody could look at why do you want to see in the park, and you put your little things on the pictures and put your little boats and stuff. I think that this will be coming back with that being condensed down of what, an idea of what the park may look like. So if you're available to attend, it might be kind of a good idea, because again, I don't know if they're going to have anything, or it's just going to be, here's the presentation and open for question and answer. As you know from the budget, when council adopted budget on June 7th, there was discussion of parks and recreation fees and trying to recover some more cost and not subsidize some of our programs as much. I met last week, 2 days, I was in meetings with Dan Eds, who's the consultant the city has hired to do a fee study. He's gotten hopefully everything he needs. The last piece he needs and I'm waiting for is providing me a spreadsheet with all of my staff and how much time they spend on all of our different programs. And hopefully within 2 months we'll have his results of what he recommends the city does with parks and recreation fees and what direction we need to go based on some direction from the city manager. So that's all I have. We're 3/4 away to camp. School starts 3 weeks from tomorrow, and we'll run camp up till the day before school starts. So again, thank you for your efforts in securing that grant. I know that several of the parents were just blown away. They was like, "You're kidding me! You're kidding that you're going to give me a scholarship!" And very excited, and the kids have had a great time. So.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, Commissioner Young and I will take the poster, the thank you from the kids, to the City Council meeting tomorrow, and we'll thank the City Council for the continuation of camp, and that we have this great opportunity for our families. So we're going to thank them, and then we'll hand that off and ask one Councilmember Coors if he'll take that back to his community who actually provided the scholarship.
Very good.
Okay.
Seeing no other comments or discussions, we stand adjourned.
Great, thank you. Okay, and I don't want any cross.
Stand outside.
I'm freezing.
No, just think they could save so much
I'm
money.
glad I didn't wear short sleeves today.
It was cold here the last time.
I think it's cooler than 72.
Yeah,
I think I'll bring a sweater next time. I'm going to bring a shawl.
San Rafael.
Good meeting, Chairman. Good meeting. And so I'll see you tomorrow. I won't be